My sister pushed me into the ocean to inherit $70 million. When she returned, I was waiting. Welcome back to Heartstrings and Stories, a place where we explore the darkest corners of human nature and the powerful, often poetic justice that finds its way back. Before we begin, if you believe that actions have consequences, smash that like button. If you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting the bell, because the stories we tell here, they have a way of staying with you. Today's story is a deep one. It's about the bond of sisterhood, shattered by unimaginable greed. It's about a $70 million inheritance, a stormy night in the middle of the ocean, and a betrayal so cold it'll make your blood run even colder. But most of all, it's about the patient, quiet wait for life to balance the scales. This is the story of me, Diana, and my sister Maria. And by the end of it, I want you to tell me in the comments, what is the one betrayal you could never forgive? Let's begin. Our parents were brilliant, eccentric, and tragically mortal. Arthur and Isabella Vance, inventors and entrepreneurs who struck gold with a patent for a revolutionary water purification system. They built an empire from a garage workshop, but their greatest pride wasn't their wealth, it was their daughters. Maria, the eldest by 3 years, was the sun. Charismatic, bold, with a laugh that could command a room. I, Diana, was the moon. Quieter, more observant, happiest with a sketchbook or buried in the technical schematics of my parents' latest project. Where Maria shone in galas and boardrooms, I found my peace in the quiet hum of the lab. But we were inseparable. She was my protector against schoolyard bullies. I was her confidant, the one who'd stay up with her after a bad breakup, sketching silly pictures until she laughed. We'd whisper dreams to each other in the dark. She dreamed of running the company, of being a titan of industry. I dreamed of starting an environmental non-profit, of using our family's legacy to heal the world. Our parents, in their infinite wisdom, crafted a will that reflected us perfectly. The company, the majority stake, the CEO title, it was all left to Maria. She had the drive for it. But to me, they left their liquid assets, stocks, bonds, and the proceeds from the sale of their prized patent, totaling a cool $70 million. It was my seed money to change the world. It was, in their eyes, perfect balance. They never could have imagined it would become a death sentence. The reading of the will was held in our father's old oak-panelled study. The air was thick with grief. I sat, numb, clutching a handkerchief that still smelled of my mother's perfume. When the lawyer finished, the silence was deafening. I looked at Maria, my eyes brimming with tears, seeking solace in our shared loss. But her face, it was a mask of cold, hard stone. Her eyes, usually so warm and lively, were narrowed chips of flint, fixed not on me, but on the document in the lawyer's hands. 70 million, she whispered, the words not a statement, but an accusation. It's for the foundation, Maria, I said softly, reaching for her hand. You have the company. You have everything you ever wanted. She snatched her hand away as if my touch had burned her. The company has debt, Diana. It has overhead, payroll, liabilities. You get pure liquid cash, while I get a job. The venom in her voice was paralyzing. That was the moment I saw the first crack. The sun had been extinguished, and in its place was a black hole of resentment. In her twisted logic, our parents had chosen me. They had loved me more. The following weeks were a masterclass in passive aggression. Comments about how I wouldn't have to work a day in my life. Snide remarks about my little hobby charity. The sister I knew was receding, replaced by a stranger who saw me not as family, but as an obstacle. The call came on a Tuesday. Diana? Maria's voice was bright, familiar. It was the voice of my big sister from before. It was so disarming I almost cried. I've been a monster, I'm so sorry. The grief, it just ate me alive. Hope, foolish and fragile, bloomed in my chest. It's okay, Maria. I miss them too. I miss us. I have an idea, she said, her tone shifting to excited. A reconciliation trip. Just you and me. Let's take the Serendipity out one last time. The Serendipity was our parents' 40-foot sailing yacht. It's where we'd spent every summer of our childhood. We can scatter their ashes at sea, just like they wanted. We can say goodbye properly, and we can talk, just us, like we used to. It sounded perfect. It sounded like healing. Would you have said yes? Be honest, comment below. Would you have trusted her again? I should have seen it. The weather forecast was turning a system moving in, promising rough seas. But Maria insisted. It's poetic, she'd said. A little storm to match the storm inside us. We'll face it together. Together! What a beautiful, poisonous word. The sea was a restless beast that evening. The sky was a bruised purple, and the wind had a hungry howl to it. The Serendipity rose and fell on swells that were growing taller and angrier by the minute. But Maria was a skilled sailor, fearless. She moved around the deck with a grim determination, her face set against the stinging spray. We performed our little ceremony at the stern, holding the ornate urn between us. As we tipped it, the wind caught the ashes, carrying them away into the vast grey expanse. I wept, finally letting go. I felt a sense of peace. That's when I felt her hand on my back. It wasn't a comforting touch. It was a placement, a firm, deliberate pressure. I turned my head, confused, and in the flash of lightning that illuminated the deck, I saw her face. There was no grief there, no love, no regret. There was only a terrifying, focused calculation. I'm sorry, little sister, she said, her voice flat, devoid of all emotion. But $70 million is a lot of money for a dreamer. It deserves an ambitious owner. And she pushed. The world upended. The roar of the wind was replaced by the shocking, icy embrace of the ocean. I plunged deep, the breath knocked from my lungs. I fought my way to the surface, gasping, choking on salt water. I saw the Serendipity already pulling away, and I saw her, Maria, standing at the transom, hands on the rails, watching me. She didn't scream. She didn't throw a life ring. She just watched. She made sure. And then, as another wave crashed between us, she turned and walked back to the helm. I was alone, in the raging Atlantic, presumed dead. The cold was a pain like I'd never known. It was needles, it was fire, it was a weight pulling me down. My waterlogged clothes were an anchor. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. Betrayed, forgotten. But then, something my father taught me surfaced through the panic. The ocean is a brutal mother, Diana. She gives life, and she takes it. Respect her, and she might just respect you back. 100 yards away, through the slashing rain, I saw it, a dark shape riding the waves, Whale Rock, a large, solitary outcrop they'd named for its shape. It was treacherous, surrounded by sharp, smaller rocks, which was why we never moored there. But right now, it was the only land in a furious sea. Summoning a strength I didn't know I had, I fought the current. I swam not with grace, but with a primal, desperate will to live. Every stroke was a rebellion against my sister's greed. Every gasp of air was a promise of revenge. My hands, numb and bleeding, scraped against barnacle-encrusted rock. I hauled myself out of the churning water, collapsing onto a small, level shelf, shielded from the worst of the wind by a taller peak. I was alive, bruised, frozen, half drowned, but alive. And on that rock, as the storm screamed around me, the last embers of the gentle, dreaming Diana died. In their place, a new woman was forged in salt and fury, a woman of ice and patience. The hunt was on, but the prey had no idea she was now the predator. I was declared dead after a 3-day search. The Coast Guard found debris from the Serendipity, a life ring, some splintered wood. Maria, the devastated, sole-surviving heir, played her part perfectly for the cameras. She gave a tearful press conference, praising her brave, beautiful sister lost to the sea. She inherited everything, the company, and my $70 million. Meanwhile, I was on Whale Rock for 36 hours. I was found by a freelance fisherman, a reclusive old man named Elias who ran illegal lobster pots away from the authorities. He wasn't a hero, he was a pragmatist. He saw a story he could use. I made him a deal. My designer watch, my diamond earrings worth over 50 grand for a ride to the mainland, his silence, and the clothes on his back. No questions asked? He took the deal. To him, I was a rich girl in trouble. He had no idea of the truth. I disappeared. I used the last of my cash to buy a burner phone and a bus ticket to another state. I accessed a secret offline cloud drive. My father told me he had set up for me a digital escape fund with new identities, passports, and a modest amount of cash he'd squirreled away for a true emergency. He always said, "Even the brightest empires can fall, darling. Have a backup plan." I never thought I'd need it to hide from my own sister. For 6 months, I watched. I cut my hair short, dyed it red. I worked a cash-only waitressing job and lived in a rented room, my existence pared down to a single purpose, watching Maria. I saw her on business news sites, taking the company public. I saw her in society magazines, buying a penthouse, a fleet of sports cars. She was the grief-stricken heiress who conquered adversity. The public ate it up. She had everything, but I had the one thing she didn't: time, and a heart full of resolve. I knew her vanity. I knew her need for public adoration. The final act of her performance would be a memorial, a grand public dedication of a new marine research wing in our parents' and my name. She would do it on the anniversary of my death. She would stand there, in front of everyone, and lie. And that's where I would be waiting. The day was bleak and drizzly, perfect for a memorial. The new Arthur, Isabella, and Diana Vance Marine Institute was a gleaming glass structure on the edge of the cliffs, overlooking the very ocean that had supposedly claimed me. The press was there, the socialites were there, the sycophants and the genuinely mournful were all there. And at the centre of it all stood Maria, dressed in a stunning, tailored black couture dress, a single strand of our mother's pearls at her throat. She stood behind a podium, a single, perfectly timed tear tracing a path down her cheek as she spoke into the microphones. My sister, Diana, her voice trembled with practiced grief, was a light, a beautiful, selfless soul whose passion for the ocean was tragically intertwined with her fate. This institute will ensure her dream lives on. The crowd was mesmerized. They saw strength, grace, and sorrow. I saw a monster. I had slipped in at the back, anonymous in the crowd, wearing a long black trench coat and wide sunglasses despite the gloom. I looked like another wealthy mourner. I moved through them like a ghost, my heart hammering not with fear, but with anticipation. As she finished her speech to a round of respectful, sombre applause, she stepped away from the podium, accepting condolences. That's when I made my move. I walked up the steps to the stage. The organiser, thinking I was a VIP, didn't stop me. I stopped a few feet behind her. She was turned, talking to the mayor, a faint, sad smile on her lips. I spoke her name. Just one word, but in a voice she never thought she'd hear again. A voice from the grave. "Maria!" She froze. The smile vanished. Her body went rigid. She turned, slowly, as if moving through tar. Her eyes met mine. Behind the sunglasses, she couldn't see my full face, but she knew the line of my jaw, the set of my mouth. She knew. The colour drained from her face. The perfectly applied makeup suddenly looked like a mask on a corpse. Her hand flew to her pearls, clutching them like a lifeline. Her eyes widened in pure, unadulterated terror. It was the look of a person seeing their own personal ghost. "You—" she choked out, her voice a dry rasp. The microphone, still live, picked it up and echoed it across the stunned, silent crowd. It's not possible." I slowly reached up and removed my sunglasses. I let her see my eyes, let her see the cold, calm certainty in them. There was no anger, no hysteria, just ice. "Hello, sister," I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified for everyone to hear. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The crowd began to murmur. Cameras started flashing. Confusion rippled through them. "You left me for dead in the ocean for $70 million, I stated, my words falling like stones. There was no accusation in my tone. It was a simple, brutal statement of fact. "You pushed me. You watched me struggle. And you sailed away." "She's lying!" Maria shrieked, her composure shattering into a million pieces. The performance was over. This was raw, panicked survival. "She's an imposter! A fraud! Security!" But no one moved. They were all frozen, watching the unbelievable drama unfold. "The will was very specific, Maria," I continued, taking a step closer. She flinched back, as if I were brandishing a weapon. "I had to be deceased for you to inherit my share. But, as you can see, I'm not deceased." I reached into my coat pocket. Her eyes followed my hand, terrified of what I might pull out. But it was just a phone. I held it up and pressed play. And through the speakers, her own voice, clear as day from that stormy night, rang out across the cliffside. "I'm sorry, little sister, but $70 million is a lot of money for a dreamer. It deserves an ambitious owner." The gasp from the crowd was a unified sound. Cameras exploded with light, video lenses zooming in on Maria's utterly destroyed face. I had recorded our entire conversation on the boat. A paranoid habit I'd picked up from my father after a bad business deal. I'd forgotten the voice memo app was even running in my pocket when I handed her my phone to take a picture of the sunset earlier. The water had ruined the phone, but the audio file had automatically backed up to the cloud. My cloud. The evidence was irrefutable. Maria didn't say another word. She just stood there, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly, her eyes wide with the dawning horror of her complete and total ruin. The socialite, the CEO, the grieving sister, it was all stripped away, leaving a hollow, terrified woman facing the consequences of her own evil. I leaned in close, so only she could hear me over the growing din of the crowd. "You wanted the money, Maria. You got it, but you forgot the price. You inherit the money, but you also inherit everything else, shame inclusive." I stepped back as two police officers, alerted by someone in the crowd, finally made their way onto the stage. They didn't go for me. They went for her. As they read her rights and led her away, the cameras documenting her every humiliated step, our eyes met one last time. In hers was a bottomless pit of shock and terror. In mine was the calm, deep satisfaction of the deep, patient ocean. Justice, served not with a scream, but with a whisper, not with violence, but with proof. I had waited, and my wait was over. Maria was convicted of attempted murder and fraud. She lost everything, the company, the money, her freedom, and her reputation. The $70 million, along with the company assets, were rightfully returned to me. But the money, it felt different, tainted. So, I did what I always said I would do. I used every single cent to launch the Vance Foundation, a globally impactful non-profit dedicated to ocean conservation and clean water initiatives. It's my parents' true legacy. It's my redemption. I didn't get my sister back. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. The bond we shared was shattered on those rocks that night, but I got something else. I got my life. I got my purpose. And I got a powerful, painful lesson. Greed doesn't just corrupt, it isolates. It makes you see loved ones as obstacles. And karma is not a fairy tale. It's the universe's law of balance. It's patient, it's precise, and it always, always collects its debt. So, tell me, what did you think? Was her punishment enough? Let me know in the comments. What's the one thing you would never do for money, no matter the amount? If this story resonated with you, if you felt that chill, that satisfaction, then do this channel a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about betrayal, revenge, and the undeniable power of modern karma. Remember, your actions define you. Choose them wisely. Until next time.